high school, I wanted to make movies. That, you know, you kind of get that feeling like, I want to make movies. What does that mean? And that is something no one really thinks about.
Yeah,
you just think,
definitely I wasn't.
You're going to be a director, or what do you mean you're going to be? Now looking at it, when you work in the industry and you look back and you go, there are so many different options. You can't just say, I want to make movies. Eventually you make a decision on what you want to do.
Right.
What part you want to focus on. Do I want to be behind the camera, in front of the camera? Do I want to be where the camera tapes come in? Do I want to be where the film comes in?
Right.
So at some point, I went to school at Edinburgh University, East Coast, and then I went from there. And, you know, honestly, I went there because I wasn't sure what I was going to get into, and I couldn't afford any crazy, you know, film school.
USC, NYU.
You see, like, I went to Edinburgh
UCLA.
University, and it was like a lot of animation students, a lot of nursing and teaching. It was a weird mix.
So
then I did film, and then at one point, so I'm fast forwarding, I'm through all of it. They had like Video Toaster, they had Sony Vegas. I mean, the stuff that was behind the times, but that's what they could afford at the time. And I knew something more was needed. So I came out to LA, visited some people. I realized, oh wow, the editing process is like, and even when you're making your short films, you know, you make them, I loved sitting in that room and going like, I'm gonna put this together, I'm gonna assemble it, you know. Assembling it was the most fun out of everything for me. So then when I came out here, I realized, oh, you're editing. What is that? What are you using? And they were using Media Composer.
I didn't even think about going to film school, because film school was like one of those things where I was like, it's like, you know, unless your parents were in film or something, like your parents were like, you know, lighting gaffers or something, there was no way you were getting in. You know, I didn't even think about that. I wanted to be an advertising copywriter. Really badly. I really wanted to do it. I'm so glad I didn't do it, but I really wanted to do it. And so I went to school I kind of double majored sort of in business and in journalism. And because my school didn't really have an advertising concentration. So I sort of like tried to, you know, gear all my business classes to advertising, but I was a really good writer, and I was always really afraid of hard news, you know, because back then in those days, hard news was, you know, if you confused the word and the in something, you would start the next Watergate scandal. Not like it is now, where basically you can print anything and just print a retraction, no big deal. Facts don't matter. But back then I was always afraid, because I was like, oh my God, if I get the truth wrong, then you know, I could start a scandal. So I was always like, nah, I think I'd like to go over to the sort of public relations kind of side. So we ended up doing a lot of like little news packages and stuff like that and editing. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun. I like it. But, you know, it was tape based back then. It was like, you know, and so, you know, I graduated, came out to LA, tried to get into some advertising mailrooms, could not get in anywhere, and got lucky because my cousin knew the guy who was running the mailroom at MGM. And I thought, well, you know, I guess the film business, but there's no way I'm going any further. But as I learned a little bit more about the film business, I had a cousin who was an AD, like she did like Star Trek: The Next Generation for like all of, I don't know, how many seasons are there? You would know.
I think there's a lot.
Anyway, I was like, my cousin was there and she was working on the Paramount lot, and I was like, I would visit every once in a while and I'd be like, man, I would love to get a job where I could just like, you know, wear jeans to work and ride a bike, you know, around, deliver stuff. That was like, you know. And then I got to be a production assistant, I got to be a production assistant on 30-something. And it was like, that's when I started like seeing like what all the departments were. And one of my jobs was to get the script notes from the script supervisor in the morning and bring them up to editorial. And from that, I started making friends with all the editors and the assistants, and really kind of realized that they didn't have to be at work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't have to work in the rain and the cold and the And what was even cooler, the two of the coolest things. The first coolest thing was that production would work for, I don't know, X amount of months, 5 months, 6 months, but post-production would work for 9 months, 10 months, right? And even better, cooler thing, which is what I tell assistants now, is that when you work like as an assistant editor, you are in direct contact, and if you play your cards right, you can have conversations and also make quite an impression on above-the-line people, directors, producers, actors, writers, for weeks, months, years, I suppose, sometimes, but just hours lit, you know, that you can be in the same space with them. And, you know, inevitably, if you have a decent personality and you're working for an editor that's not insecure and, you know, afraid of you, then, you know, you can have conversations with them. I mean, I have still relationships with producers that I made when I was an assistant editor. When I was a PA on 30-something, the editors were teaching me how to work the system. It was a tape-based system. It was a nonlinear system, and they taught me how to use it. And then they started giving me scenes to cut just for notes. Like I was just learning. And I found out not too long ago, maybe about a couple of years ago, that one of the editors, one of my early mentors, he was giving me scenes to cut, and he was like, "Wow, you know, she's actually pretty good," and he would put my scene in the show, which was, you know, pretty cool. And
lawsuit. Let's go back and get that guy. We'll get him.
Union guy, right? Yeah, exactly. No, but it was like that was the early way that I, you know, started was, and then, you know, I just realized, just like Josh, like post, you know, aside from the things that I just mentioned, that is advantageous. It's, to me, I've always said, it's really where the magic happens. Although lately, I don't really like to publicize that too much because people get offended. They're like, "No, the set is the better place. You actually get to see it." And I'm like,
Didn't the set create Fix It in Post though? That's what's funny. You know, it's like that came from the production world where they're like, "Oh, we'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post," right? And then when people like editors or something say, "Yeah, we get to do this and that," they're like, "Hold on a second.
Yeah.
We did it pretty good in the field too." It's like, "Yeah, we're not saying that, but we do get to bring it together."
we get to paint with more colors in post, and we also get to manipulate, and you can take manipulation as a bad word. I'm not saying it as a bad word. What it is I'm saying that we can stretch out a performance, we can shape a performance. There's lots of different ways that we can, there's lots of different things that we can do.
Emotion.
We
can give you an
use
emotion.
music, we can use sound, we can use a different color, we can make things fast-paced and frenetic, we can make them languid and softer and, you know, take time. We can do all those kinds of things in post that, you know, really, you know, and this is not taken away from any actor or director or whoever is responsible for all the many people that are responsible for getting a performance in real time. But we can take that performance and we can start cutting it together with another one.
Yeah.
You know, we can use that performance and we can cut it with somebody else's POV of that performance. We can make all kinds of different statements with that. And so, you know, it's almost like we get to sort of, people say that, oh, they get to rewrite in editing. And that sort of sounds so cliche, but it is kind of true. You know, we do get to, you know, reshape. You know,
kind of
if
rewriting
something
the
is
emotion
working,
sometimes.
yeah, if something is working, we get to enhance. If something is not working, we can find ways to make it work. If something was shot in one way, like say, oh, you know, we need this guy to be happy but skeptical. Well, and it didn't come through. Well, then how do we make it skeptical? Let's find a way where
It's got a lot of happy,
where we
maybe a little bit more skeptical in there.
Bats his eyes a certain way or something.
Yeah.
We can look for those and we can work them in. I learned editing on like a tape-based system, just the basics of, you know, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna replace a picture, you know, with another picture, and you're gonna tell a story in a very crude way in pictures. And then it was a digital-based system. And then I actually worked for the competitor. I worked for Lightworks after being an assistant for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. I actually worked in tech support for Lightworks. Lightworks was getting assistant editors. There were probably about 5 or 6 of us. And we took a break for about a year, and we were teaching other assistants how to troubleshoot and do all those things with Lightworks. And what it taught me a lot about computers. It taught me a lot about DOS-based stuff. And it made me sort of a better assistant because I was having to like interface with assistants, learn about how the cut list and the change list work. So when it came to me having to learn Avid, because Lightworks kind of just never really kind of got over out of the developmental stage. I think there was a a buyout of the company. The company was an English company, I think, and it was a buyout. I think they used it in Canada. But it came time to where we're going to have to learn Avid. And I was very nervous. The last thing I wanted to do was pay somebody thousands of dollars to learn the damn thing. And I was like, look, I'm not needing to learn how to edit. And I'm not needing to learn how to, I wasn't having to learn the language. I was just having to learn, okay, where's the in, where's the out, and where's the buttons to put those together. So I ended up taking a job as an assistant, and so like kind of fudged the fact that, oh yeah, Avid, no problem. And I pretty much learned on the job. I did it was a pilot too, but I was a good enough assistant at that point where I was like, look, and what I learned, even when we were talking earlier about the student-based system, which is very simple, that's how I learned it. To be an assistant, really with all the things I had to do, sound effects, I basically had to learn how to edit because that's what I was doing.
I would have killed to have that free item when I was learning and didn't have to, because you can learn it, have at least the base techniques down, and then when you get told at a professional level, hey, we're using Avid, you're gonna be ready. Like you're at least gonna have the base knowledge. You're not gonna have to fake it. That's which is the thing. The fake it till you make it is definitely a thing out here. I've run into that a lot with assistants.
Yeah, and you know what? It can work if you can pull it off. That's the thing. Yeah. You got to be able to close on that one.
Yeah, if you're not, they're gonna catch you, and then that's not a great way to start out. But if you get these beginner ways, and again, it's like if I was working off of a book and a paid system, I would have killed to have a free system that's almost a mirror image of what we use every day. Use Media Composer first for, like, when you have a stupid idea, follow it. You'll have a free editing software system.
You can do it on your iPhone, or your Android phone or whatever.
Was that footage we were using was off iPhone?
Get that, edit something together. The whole point is that get in there and start practicing.
Because someone else is going to do it otherwise. Right now, the digital world is on fire. If someone wants to do it, there is no more like, hey, I wonder if someone could finance this. They just do it. Like, why are people waiting anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
You can just do it. If you want something and you want to get it made, I mean, nothing's changed in that sense though, because the people who have actually made it big, like if you look at Rodriguez, if you look at Tarantino and all those guys, a lot of those dudes just
those old guys.
But they went and did it. They went and did it. Like Rodriguez just like straight up would be like VHS, tape to tape,
yeah.
There was nothing stopping them, and you could save money, but not really. Those guys did whatever they could.
If you want to make films, make films. I mean, there's really no stopping you now, because it's like, in my day, it was millions of dollars. Now, shoot a movie on your iPhone, edit it on the free software, throw it up on YouTube, done.
Executives make millions, and you get nothing. Oh wait, what is that?
Oh yeah.
But that's the truth.
You never know. You could get discovered. You never know.
Low budget is, low budget is still high, but not really. It's a weird world where you can make you can make a movie. What is Kevin Smith's $27,000 for Clerks or something like that? In film, it would have been cheaper now. Again, I would have killed someone to be able to save my $300 and then just cut. Again, because yes, there's totally the idea that there's different platforms out there. Everyone should have their own platform. Everyone should use all of them. You should have your toolbox. I've always said there's a toolbox. If you have that toolbox, then you can worry about the story, like we were talking about. So if your toolbox is free, it makes it that much easier to go ahead and learn that part.
And the other thing too is you can't get around the fact that as much as these other guys they kind of want to make their own segues and inroads in, Avid is still the standard. It's,
especially if you're sharing.
I'm getting ready to start a pilot, and it didn't even occur to me to ask them if this was going to be done on a different platform. I'm like, oh shit, maybe I should ask.
Okay.
Thank God. I was like, forget it. I just would absolutely refuse. I'd be like, no, there's no way that I can do that pilot on that schedule on another piece of software. There's just no way. I'm not going to do it. I'm not even going to put myself through that. I will just say, sorry, I'm going to have to back out, and you'll have to find somebody else.
Because that's the other thing is, like, Avid's simple enough too, where it's like, if you need to get something done, you can figure it out. There are wrong turns to make in the other softwares where it's like, I can always find my way out in Avid, which is nice. Like, there's a way around it, and it's also open enough where I can do things that I think I've told people at Avid, I do this and this, and they're like, huh, I guess that if it works, and it's like, yeah, it does for some reason. I don't know why, but it works, and that's, I like that. I like that I can make my own way and create a workflow.
The fact that Avid is now cutting, I mean, to me, I kept hearing about this thing about cutting, I don't even remember the term, but basically cut footage without bringing it into, like the other systems could do that, yeah. And now that Avid can do that, to me, there is no excuse.
Do a little background transcoding. I've been doing background transcoding, by the way. 8 got that nailed down because I set it and forget it for, what was I just digitizing? Or transcoding.
Digitizing.
See, I keep going to it.
That's
I'll
like
say
an
for the
early
rest of my life.
thousands word.
Yeah, and it's like, it'll be that forever. I was just transcoding for like a sizzle, and it was like, I think I had 4 days worth of footage, and I set it all up. The background thing is perfect. Like that to me has been super fun, because then I can put that on the iMac and I can work on my laptop on a different project completely. Or I could work on that machine while I'm transcoding, which is another great thing, because again, the transcoding I like because it doesn't slow down later. Once I have 1,000 things going on, my project, you know, especially on a doc, there's gonna be layers, there's gonna be sound, there's gonna be all that. When you link to a Premiere or anything else, when you link to those other programs, there's lag. There's definitely lag, and you're if you move something, it's got to re-render that and build a proxy, all that.
And you're like, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting?
Just make Avid Media, then AMA link your up-res, and boop, 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 you're done, you know? It's definitely harder than what I just said. The boop, 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 there is a good amount of steps in the boop, 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 but yeah.